Welcome to the wall, Rich Hagan alongside Ian Duke. Now, Ian, I think a lot of players, when they just start out on Limited, they get overwhelmed. There's a blizzard of cards coming at you, every pick, every pack. It's decision paralysis, if you like.
Yeah, sometimes it can be, but we try to give you some things to help you out as you're going through the draft.
Right, now part of that is the way that the sets are designed with signpost uncommons. You pick a two-color uncommon and it puts you in a direction. We're going to take that one stage further and look at a pair of draft archetype blueprints, a typical deck that you're going to build almost every time you end up in that archetype. Not always, but most of the time. We're going to start today with green-blue ramp. So let's take a look. What is the just basic idea of green-blue ramp?
Get lots of mana, play huge spells.
See, that was easy, wasn't it? Let's see what a typical deck might look like then. We're going to give you the whole deck, and then we're going to break it all down. So you got Labyrinth Guardian, a couple more 2-drops there, a Counterspell, Essence Scattered, Double Weaver of Currents, we'll talk more about that in a mo, Giant Spider been around since the dawn of Magic, and then lots of big expensive stuff over there. That gives you sort of an overall shape of the deck. So why don't we look at the ramp? And we should actually say, Ian, why do we even call it ramp?
Because you're ramping your way up, you're getting more and more mana as you go, and then you're just casting huge creatures, huge spells, having a large effect on the game with all that mana. Okay, so Naga Vitalist, it's common. You're almost always going to be able to get hold of one of those. We've been a little greedy. We've gone for two of the signature uncommons, the Weaver of Currents. But it's the nature of the draft format, isn't it, that if you do pick one early and move into green-blue, well, who else at the table is going to be doing that same thing? Yeah, oftentimes there's only one player at the table that's drafting any given color combination, and so these signpost uncommons, either you can get them early and then you'll be the player that moves into that combination, or you happen to be the player that's in that combination, they're opened late, and then they float around the table and come to you. One of the cool things about the spell versions of Ramp is that they can't be magma sprayed. Weaver of Currents or Naga Vitalist, they have a big target on them because people can see what you're trying to do. But Gift of Paradise, lands are hard to get rid of, and Spring, you just cast, and as long as it resolves, you don't get censored or something like that, then you're going to get your basic land card. So we've only got 5 cards there that directly ramp you. Let's see what the next phase of the deck is. Well, if you're going to ramp, you must keep hitting your land drops, because otherwise you're just kind of unmulliganing yourself almost on the turn structure. So if we take a look here, what are we doing here, Ian, to supplement those initial cards? Right, so I think of it this way. What is special about this color combination, about this particular format that I want to play lots of huge spells? And the answer in Amonkhet is cycling. You can see lots of these big creatures like Greater Sandworm, like River Serpent, Shefet Monitor, they all have cycling on them. And what that lets you do is you can play a higher density of big spells. So when you do get to the late game, you have the heavy hitters keep on coming, but also early on in the game, if you draw these and you can't cast them yet, or if you get stuck on your land drops, you can just cycle these away, look for more lands, and gradually work your way up. Right, and this is a fast format where a lot of players are doing something on turn 1, and pretty much everyone's doing something on turn 2. We noticed it when we first looked at the deck, there weren't any 1-drops. But if you happen to have River Serpent, well, there's your turn 1 play. It's I'm going to end your turn, cycle River Serpent away. All right, so we've kept lands coming. We've got our acceleration with Vitalist, Double Weaver, Gift, and Spring. Well, what does that do for us? Because it's all very well having a plan, but you must have a payoff. So what is the payoff? Let's take a look. Again, big stuff here, right? You've got more large creatures in the form of Colossopede, Shimmer Scale Drake, but then you've also got some even more powerful heavy hitters here, like Sandworm Convergence. This is a rare card, so you won't always see it, but if it is open in the draft, it's definitely for you as the green-blue player. It'll often float around a little bit. And then you have other super powerful higher rarity creatures like Angler Drake is one of my favorites. This is a 6-mana 4/4 flyer, enters the battlefield and bounces one of your creatures, so it really helps you recover from the fact that you spent your early turns ramping up your mana and not necessarily impacting the board. All right, so let's clear the board and work our way up the curve, because this is how the matchup always plays out. Don't think of your deck as one pile. It's spread along a line through the game. So here's your turn 2 play. Maybe you kick off with a Naga Vitalist, or maybe a Labyrinth Guardian. Let's go on to 3. And lots of stuff here. You've got half a dozen cards there. Now, again, when you're organizing your cards, don't necessarily think of them as a creature spell or a spell. Mouth, yes, it's a spell, but look, it's a 3/3 hippo, so we've put it with the creatures. That's what it does, that's what it is on the battlefield. It hasn't been a spell,
it's a creature. So always look at what the function of the card is rather than just the words on the card. On we go to 4, and you've got a couple of flyers, or well, reach in the case of the giant spider. Ian, in general, a card like Hieroglyphic Illumination, you're going to want to be that on turn 4. That's not great, is
No,
it
that's
there?
not a 4-drop in the sense that you're looking to curve out, boom, 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 and then drop your hieroglyphic illumination on turn 4. This is more for later on in the game. Ramp decks can tend to flood out, so you want to have a way to recoup your cards.
Okay, let's do the last chunk, 5s and then 6s and all the way up to the end. Tons of big stuff there, but here's the big payoff. You start with a Vitalist, so that's an extra mana. On turn 3, Weaver of Currents. Now you've got 2 extra mana plus 1 extra mana for the Vitalist. On turn 4, you ley land number 4, we're up to 7 mana. Now pretty much anything on that far right-hand side is available to you. And that's the fun of Green Blue Ramp. Now we've got one more to squeeze in. The players are already gearing up for the next round. How about we keep the green? Let's talk about black-green, -1/-1 counters in.
Black-green is a -1/-1 counter deck, but maybe not in the sense you'd originally think. You think of -1/-1 counters, you think about putting them on your opponent's creatures and killing their creatures. Black-green is actually an archetype that benefits from putting -1/-1 counters onto your own creatures and spreading them around.
Right, let's take a look at a typical deck. This is going to be a good deck, not a crazy one. We haven't put tons of rares in. And as you can see, plenty at 2, tons at 3. That's where the deck really lives. Let's get to the core of the deck, and this is the -1/-1 counter. So Ian, walk us through some of these.
Yeah, so take a look at Exemplar of Strength, for example. This is a 4/4 creature for 2 mana. That sounds awesome, Rich.
Wow.
But we have to but put 3 -1/-1 counters on a creature you control when it enters the battlefield. So you can either put them on the Exemplar of Strength itself, and then it has a way to remove them over time, or you can offload them on some other creature you happen to have, like maybe a measly 1/1 token or a creature with high toughness, and actually get your 4/4 for 2 mana if you do that. Similarly, we have this theme repeating here in Crocodile the Crossing, Ornery Kudu, and so on. So the real theme here is you have these super powerful creatures with the drawback of you have to put -1/-1 counters on other creatures you control, but you can do that in a way that strategically benefits you.
Worth talking about the fact there are a lot of cards there. There's 10 cards, almost half the deck is doing that for you, putting the -1 counter on. What about the payoff then? And another thing that's so great about this deck is a lot of the same cards are the payoff. The payoff and the idea are baked into the same card in the sense of Exemplar, Defiant Greatmaw, Decimated Beetle, Soul Stinger. So you don't need to establish a combo, it's just inherent in the card, which is great.
Right, so the payoff here is you've gotten a huge creature in exchange for having to put -1/-1 counters on it or another creature you control. Then you have all these spells that can remove those -1/- creatures and just lift those creatures up. So Shed Weakness is a good example here, in Quarry Hauler as well. Awesome ways to remove the -1/-1 counters once they're on your own creatures.
Now you're probably going to have to do a few drafts before you get hold of a Nest of Scarabs. It is uncommon, but boy, you can do some crazy stuff. If you've got a Nest of Scarabs on 3, whew.
Yeah, and the key part of this card is create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. So if you're putting, say, 3 or 4 -1/-1 counters on a creature at a time, you're really just flooding the board with these insects.
Right, just going Nest of Scarabs 3, Soul Stinger on 4, Decimated Beetle on 5. Well, here's your army of Scarabs right away. Great flavor, great gameplay, but not backbreaking necessarily. Takes a lot of those little 1/1s to utterly take over the game, but really, really great stuff. Okay, let's work our way through the curve then. How does it work out? Shed Weakness at 1, you're never casting that on 1, but it's useful later on at a cheap cost. Here come the 2s, and plenty of things there. You've got Doom Descender, Doom Beetle, Bitter Blade Warrior is a nice aggressive creature, and maybe you've got an uncommon like Destined to Lead there, moving to Aftermath later in the game with the Lure ability, which is a very scary ability in Magic, which is great. The 3s, Ian, what stands out there for you?
Ornery Kudu is just kind of a bread and butter card there. I'll also add some of these spells here are really key to the deck. This is a little bit of a slower deck. It plays more in the mid-range space. So Cartouche of Ambition can help you stay alive. Splendid Agony can pick off some weenie creatures, and Cartouche of Strength, also a great removal spell that makes your creatures bigger along the way.
And again, we haven't gone for just the best ideal version of the deck. You've got a couple of cartouches here, no trials yet. So maybe if you've got a Trial of Strength or a Trial of Ambition, well, then that's going to improve your cartouches. You've got that little package baked into your deck. So there are lots of ways to improve on this. Let's move up to 4. And there you see just 3 creatures, but they're all pretty big and heavy hitting.
Yeah, Crocodile the Crossing, one of my favorite cards. This is a very high pick in draft. Pick it up if you can see it. It's a great kind of gateway into this archetype.
And then keep on going up. What have we got at 5? Decimator Beetle, just a phenomenal card. And actually, Colossopede, relatively, not in the same league.
Yeah, that's true, but you know, Colossopede, 5 mana, 5/5 vanilla creature, perfectly serviceable here. I will point out, at its heart, even with all the -1/-1 counter theme here, this really is just a big creatures plus removal kind of classic black-green deck, and that's why cards like Final Reward and Splendid Agony are so important here to back up your big green ground pounders.
Yeah, for those of you who watched this yesterday with LSV, you may have noticed that 1 copy of Final Reward has now been in every single one of these that had black. And then finally, let's just go up to our last thing. There's your Greatest Sandworm. So there's the package, and it's a really, really nice deck. So enjoy your draft archetypes, and remember, you're not just drafting cards, you're drafting a deck.